time. Hannah Grove joins me on Manx Radio today. Hannah is from the company. Love Life, it is, isn't it, Hannah? Yes. Love Life. And Love Life's, what's the primary objective of Love Life? What do you do?
Well, so my job is usually Love Life. We go into schools and we facilitate workshops, mostly about relationships and sex education in schools. And through that, I really realised that there was a lack of understanding, if you will, about menstruation. So I did a bit of research into it, and I started off the period pop-up, which is a bizarre name, but I'm hoping to take the pop-up into communities and into schools and show young girls and women their options really regarding menstrual products and all sorts of things like that. So
now there's going to be a pop-up in Strand Street on
the 7th of March, which is the day before International Women's Day. We're hoping to be upstairs, just opposite, when you come off the escalator. We're just going to hopefully be right there with all of our products
this
and
is going to be
information.
whereabouts in Strand Street?
In the Strand Centre.
Oh, in the centre, right.
Yes,
oh, so
yes.
by
Is it Sports Direct?
Yeah,
yes,
by Sports
just by
Direct,
the right hand side as you come up the escalators. Yeah.
Okay, that's on March the 7th as well. It's going to be on from 10 till 4. And this sounds astonishing that there's a level of ignorance regarding sanitary products and periods nowadays. It's 2020. Why is this happening?
Yeah. It's really not a negative, directing towards schools or parents or women. It's just, I think, a result of this stigma that's just surrounding menstruation and periods in general. Historically speaking, people don't really like to talk about it or don't really want it out in the open. And so we kind of have got stuck in a bit of a rut, and there are some people out there that are missing vital information. So
it's amazing because I think it must be for 20 years or so that sanitary products have been advertised on television. Before then, they were never on television, so they've been around for. So where do you think the breakdown is? What's happened?
I don't know. I maybe have some individualistic views on what I think actually happened. But I think big corporations have a lot to answer for when it comes to their marketing and their advertising of periods.
You think they're too expensive?
Yes, that's one of the reasons.
Yeah.
But just for example, you use the word sanitary products. Yes, that's the common word that we use for them, but it does imply that periods are unsanitary. When we start to use words like sanitary or feminine hygiene products, imply that you are unhygienic and therefore need hygiene products to fix that. And that's a lot to do with marketing and the language that we use to describe the products and what we go through. And it just needs to be normalised. Periods aren't unhygienic, and we don't need to be any more sanitary at that time of the month. We need to normalise it and actually just make it an everyday thing so that women aren't spending lots of money on products that aren't even necessarily good for them. And being able to talk about it in schools, with parents, with friends, so that women and also young girls are just getting the information that they need.
This is fascinating, Hannah, because I'm just interested to know where the disconnect has happened. Why are we in a supposedly advanced society in the Western world? Why do you think there's this disconnect?
I think a lot to do with the embarrassment. I think from a young age, girls are encouraged, maybe subconsciously, maybe not outwardly told, that periods and talking about it is shameful in a way, and that it should be something discreet and private. And I think when you introduce ideas of having to be discreet and private and not talking openly about things, then that lack of education really happens, and we don't openly discuss things in public, or even in private necessarily with parents or teachers. Because we're so used to having to cover it up and not discuss it openly.
So do you think some parents have approached this in the wrong way?
Some have, I think, over time. I mean, that's hundreds and thousands and millions of people over time.
Yeah.
Maybe generation through generation through generation, that impact has happened. But I don't think anyone's done it purposefully. I don't think it's that mums have gone out of their way not to discuss it. But, you know, certainly even when I was growing up, and I have quite a liberal view on these sorts of things, that we didn't really talk about it in my house even. When I first started my period, I said to my mum, "Don't tell Dad." That was the first thing I said to her. "Don't tell Dad." I have no idea why. I don't think my dad would have cared at all or had anything negative to say. But for me, that was something that was very, very important, that it needed to be kept private. You know, maybe these ideas are happening under the surface. No one's openly going, "We can't talk about this." But no one is openly talking about it. Until recently. I think it's becoming something that people are happy to talk about more now.
Okay, tell me about the charity you're involved with, Developing Orphans.
Oh, yeah. So this is kind of what started the whole process for me and my thinking. Developing Orphans is a charity based on the Isle of Man, and they have a school and an orphanage in Uganda. I started to discuss sanitary products with Pat, who was the lady that was going out to Uganda. And she was saying that, and I use sanitary products very specifically here, that because they don't have very good sanitary conditions out there, that our regular sanitary products that we would use here were no good, because they didn't have a sanitation system that could handle disposable products.
Right.
So unfortunately, the girls in the orphanage and the schools were using things like rocks, straw. Rocks, yes, to stop the blood flow, because they were so shamed and so embarrassed, and then couldn't attend school, because either they were in pain, or they had an infection, or just the shame of not wanting to be out and about when they're menstruating. So there's a cultural difference there, and you know, maybe we don't see that level over here, but it was something that really, really shocked me, and thought, I just cannot believe in this day and age that there are women in the world and girls in the world having to resort to that.
And when you say cultural, is that just purely on a country by country basis, or was that a religion, or what was involved there?
Yeah, through the research that I've done, different countries do have different stigma attached to periods. So for Uganda, it's probably closely related to religion, and the thought of using particular menstrual products would be linked to possible virginity loss and needing to keep very proper. But also for those girls, because they were orphans, they didn't have any education about it. So what we decided to do was team up with a charity called Days for Girls. Days for Girls make pads, reusable, washable pads, that they then send out to countries that need them. So we made well over 100. So each girl at the orphanage received a bag, and in it she had 5 sanitary pads, a couple of pairs of knickers, a flannel, and some soap. And Pat very kindly flew those out to Uganda and distributed them in the orphanage. So now every girl at the Developing Orphans orphanage has her own pack.
And is that still an ongoing project?
So Days for Girls works worldwide, so that's always ongoing. There is a lady on the island who works from Mother Teas in Laxey, and she coordinates some of that from the Isle of Man, so that's still going. Now that orphanage particularly has a pack for every girl, I haven't continued to make them, but if people are interested in that, then that is still going on the Isle of Man, yeah. So, yeah, that was a real feat of engineering for people that were sewing the pads together.
How did you feel when you learnt of that situation?
Oh, I was just devastated. It clearly made an impact on me, because I continued to do this work. It really broke my heart. It was just really awful to think that there were girls out there that didn't understand what was happening to them and didn't have the products that could help them. The fact that they were missing out on education, potentially a week every month, they weren't going into school. That to me was just really, really heartbreaking. So to have made an impact there was important, but it also made me question where we're at here, and that's why I've started up the period pop-up.
Okay, Hannah Grove is with us from Love Life. We're talking about this period pop-up. It's going to be in the Strand Shopping Centre, March the 7th from 10 till 4. If you've got any questions, by the way, you can text, you can email, or you can give us a call as well. Where does Bill Dale fit into all this? Because Bill, Beach Buddies, had a real problem with tampons, didn't they? And the kind of single-use stuff. So I'm interested on your take in where this fits into the ecology.
So Bill was great. He emailed me a couple of months ago with some facts and figures. That was another thing really that sparked interest in me a couple of years ago when I saw that he had, or him and the Beach Buddies volunteers had actually picked up 7,000 sanitary products off the beach in Ramsey in one beach cleanup. And that to me was just shocking. That's ridiculous, really, isn't it? I contacted him just for some statistics, and he's written back very encouraging email to say that that's massively reduced now. I think he said on his last beach cleanup in Ramsey he only found 2 disposable products, which from 7,000 to 2 is incredible. I mean, the work that they do is amazing. But what he did was describe to me where the problem lies. Sanitary products like disposable pads and tampons are still being flushed down toilets. They're not ending up on the beach because of the new sewage system that's been put in place. Great, they're not ending up on the beach, that's fantastic. However, a sewage system that has to collect that much is obviously costly, and it means that they still need to collect all those products, take them to the incinerator, where they're then destroyed. So there's a new process that's been put in place. So the beaches are safe from these products for now on the Isle of Man, but they are still being disposed of. So that's something I want to draw people's attention to, is the environmental factors with disposable menstrual products. So you're looking at disposable sanitary pads and disposable tampons. So the pop-up has lots of alternatives to that I'd like to educate people on their choices and help people to make better choices for the environment and for themselves.
Bearing in mind that people can motivate themselves and get organised nowadays, I'm just interested. It's obvious you talk about the fact that now I don't even know which word to use. Do I say sanitary products? Do I say
you can do
feminine hygiene? But these products are obviously a cash cow for big corporations because it's an ongoing stream of cash that will come in. Do you think they should be mandatorily reduced in price? Because some people are obviously struggling with the cost.
Yes, period poverty is a problem.
How much of a problem on the Isle of Man?
I don't know specifics for the Isle of Man. I can go by the Plan International did a survey, and that was based in the UK. So I can go off the UK statistics as we don't have anything specific for the Isle of Man. They suggest that 49% of girls have missed school because they can't afford period products. That in itself shocks me. I have 2 daughters, and I can't imagine them growing up in a world where they couldn't attend school because of their period. That's just unbelievable to me. The UK have now introduced, as of last week, that all state schools in the UK will have period products to give to any girl in need. So that's amazing.
And does that happen on the island? Did schools have products for girls?
Not supplied by the Department of Education, but there is a fantastic charity on the island called the Red Box Project. They have points across the island where you can donate products that they will then redistribute between the schools. So I really like to think that any girl in need in a school is able to access products via the Red Box, which sometimes they have in the school office or maybe even in the school nurse's office, but easily accessible. And the Red Box Project have done a fantastic job of letting girls know where they are so that they can access them whenever they need to.
Hannah, I'd just be interested because we can stray into non-PC territory here because we've tiptoed around the fact that some cultures, some creeds don't treat women in the way that they're treated in a secular society. And there are certain communities that where women are oppressed, and there's no getting away from that. So how do we square an approach like you have and an approach that a liberal Western democracy would have towards the position of women in society and the demeaning fact that young girls may not have enough products for their monthly cycle? How do we square that with religious oppression, cultural oppression of women?
Well, I really like to think that on the Isle of Man, that's not a problem.
Sure.
I would really like, I'd really like to think that. I haven't come across anyone that has opposed this with a negative view because of religious reasons. I mean, if that's the case,
but
then
in general around the world, there are places around the world where women are oppressed, where women are routinely demeaned, where women are routinely treated as possessions, and it just amazes me that that it happens nowadays in the 21st century. And as somebody who's obviously got a handle across all this, and you're very passionate about it, obviously, and you're giving a lot back to it. I just wonder, what's your impression of that? How do you square that in your own head?
I like to think that the best thing we can do is educate. I'm really passionate about education, and I think that if such a thing as the period pop-up or even period education was to be in those countries, I feel like that would make a huge impact. Educating men and boys is obviously equally as important as educating girls as well. And I think if you're talking specifically about the oppression of women, then education for men is something that's just paramount. On the Isle of Man as well, I think that men and boys should receive the same education when it comes to these things as girls.
Do you think young boys should know about girls' periods?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I really don't believe in separating boys and girls when it comes to education in general. I think girls need to know what boys go through and boys need to know what girls go through. I've talked to boys even up to the age of 17 who don't understand really even the basics about menstruation. For example, not even understanding that a girl will bleed on her period. That was a shocking moment for me. I didn't see that one coming. I hope that he was in the minority, but it is important to know that because period education happens maybe once or twice through someone's school education, so usually once in primary school they get the talk, and maybe it will crop up in biology and life skills maybe a couple of times when they're in secondary school. But there are going to be students that slip through the net there if they happen to be off school, or they happen to not be in the right frame of mind that day and not listening carefully. Then they might miss that information, and so you are going to get people coming through school that don't fully understand the concept. So breaking that stigma and educating people, even men with all the education that they have still don't necessarily understand the products and what women go through. And I'm sure my darling husband won't mind me mentioning that when I got passionate about this and I started questioning him, do you know this? Do you know that? When did you hear about this? And I've hopefully opened his eyes, because I talk about it all the time. It probably drives him crazy. But just making sure that men understand this as well. Men that have wives, even if you don't have wives, you have friends, or you have sisters, or you have mums, or you have colleagues who are dealing with this on a monthly basis. And I think men should have a good, broad understanding of it as well.
Fascinating, Hannah, I have to say, and I hope it's opened a few eyes today, because it's something I certainly believing as well as the father of two daughters. Obviously, you get the picture that women need to be understood. What happens in a woman's biological life needs to be understood, and if men don't understand it, the simple thing is learn about it.
Yeah.
And get to know about it. Tell us about the pop-up again. You're going around all 5 secondary schools, I think, anyway, aren't you?
Hoping to, yep. We need to get some dates in the diary, but I've had a positive response from schools.
Okay.
I'd like to roll that out and just make sure that it's available for all ages from year 7 and up.
Okay, now you're at the Strand Shopping Centre in Douglas, March the 7th from 10 till 4. Hannah, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, what do they do?
They can email me at hannah.g@sumt.im.
That's Hannah, HANNAH.
Yep. .g for Grove.
At
sumt.im.
Okay, and I think you're on Instagram as well,
We
aren't
have
you?
an Instagram page, yes. It's period pop-up.
Okay, good to talk to you, Hannah. Thanks for popping in today, and come back and let us know how everything goes on, would
Yeah,
you?
thank you so much.
Good to talk.